Hello, Neogenians. Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today we're talking about how to unlock your higher self with this technique in arcane formulas or mental alchemy. This is a book that's over 100 years old, and it describes an exercise for connecting with your higher self. It's written by the same person who wrote the Kybalion, William Walker Atkinson. And this is an extremely powerful technique, and it's one that you can use no matter what your practice is. If you're a Neogenian, it can absolutely be incorporated, and this falls under the category of phenomenological experience. So this is a powerful technique. No matter what your practice is, you will be able to use this to begin to connect with your higher self. Now, this is really cool, interesting stuff. We don't normally talk about exercises or techniques on this channel, but we're going to be doing so today. We're going to get started right away here, but as always, please like and subscribe. My channel is about raising consciousness to create a new humanity and a new earth. And when you hit like and subscribe, it spreads this information around and helps people wake up. So please do so. It helps out a lot. Also, if you enjoy my work, consider becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon. You can hit the join button below this video. Check out all the different perks you can get. You get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every single week. You can access our Discord server where we have live Neogenian classes and study groups every Sunday. Check it out. There's a lot of great stuff there. It's the best way to support my work. Also, announcement, if you haven't heard, if you didn't know, my second book is available right now. Meta-Rationalism, the New Science of Mind, that explains how this is a mathematical reality and that you are an eternal mathematical being of mind. You can check it out. In the description, tap the link in the description. You can check out all my books. This one is Meta-Rationalism, the New Science of Mind. And as always, follow me on Spotify, Dawn of the New Earth. You can check out these videos over there. All right, my friends, let's get started. So today we're talking about this technique described in this book that's over 100 years old by William Walker Atkinson. It's called the Arcane Formulas or Mental Alchemy. Why is it called mental alchemy? Because an alchemical process is about perfecting something. That's why alchemy is traditionally understood as turning metal into gold, because they're taking base metal, unpurified metal, and they're purifying it or perfecting it to turn it into gold. So mental alchemy takes that allegory, that metaphor, that process, and applies it to the mind or to the spirit, in which you are perfecting the self. You are transforming yourself into gold or transforming yourself into the divine, into perfection. So it's this alchemical process. That's what it means by mental alchemy. And the arcane formulas are the hidden ways to do that. That's what this means. And so we're going to be exploring this today. And then today we're going to be taking a look at a technique that allows one to establish their higher self and divorce themselves from understanding themselves as a body and connecting to the higher self. Now, I have to make something real clear here before we get started. And I read the first chapter last week. And if you didn't see last week's chapter, that's okay. You don't need to. But one thing that I want to clarify is that this book was written in 1909, and they used the word ego in this book. However, the way they use the word ego is nothing like how we use it today. In fact, it's basically the exact opposite. So just as a heads up, an FYI, to avoid confusion, whenever the individual here is talking about the ego or the egohood or whatever, I'm going to replace that with the word higher self, because that is much more accurate to what this individual is talking about. And I don't want there to be any confusion, because like I said, it's almost used in the opposite way. So we're going to be talking in terms of the higher self. So just to get started though, what does that mean? What is the higher self? We're talking about transcending the physical and connecting to your higher self. Well, what is the higher self? The higher self is the true you. If you want to talk about it in spiritual terms, it's you as an eternal soul. In the Neogenian system, we call this a zeta, which is a system of mathematical frequency patterns, sinusoidal waves. But the important thing to remember here is that this is a system of mind. It's not physical. You can think of it as spiritual if you'd like. I prefer terms like immaterial or mental, but you could absolutely use the word spiritual. It's kind of like the German word Geist. The German word Geist can mean spirit or mind, because they're really interchangeable when you think about them in this context. So your higher self is the true you. It's the you that has existed eternally across lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. The you that most people identify with the ego, which is I am John, and I'm 42 years old, and I'm a doctor with a family, I have 2 kids. That's just very much regulated to the particular life cycle that they're in right now. But that's not what they actually are. That's just the character that they're currently manifesting as. They're a soul, they're an eternal mind, they're a zeta that has had many, 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 many different lifetimes. Right now, it has interfaced with an avatar or a body that's having this particular experience. So your body is an avatar. That's all it is. It's like a vehicle. It's like a car. What you truly are is the soul, or the zeta, or the mind, which is the passenger in the car, the one controlling the car, the one driving the car, the one that gives the car its internal activation. So you as a zeta, as a soul, interface with an avatar or a body to explore this particular realm. We call this localizing in the holos, because you're having a localized experience in this particular realm. So just to get that right off the bat, your higher self is your eternal self. That's what that is. That's what we're talking about. Your higher self is your eternal self, which most people are unaware of. Most people just view themselves as simply their body and this particular life that they have right now and what they are currently conscious of. And that would be the ego self. Okay. So we're just making these distinctions, and I'm putting them, I'm just updating the terminology so that we're talking in more modern terms here, so it won't be confusing. So let's begin. To establish is to settle or fix firmly. So this particular lesson is called Establishing the Higher Self. So to establish is to settle or fix firmly, to make steady, firm, or stable, to place upon a firm foundation, to ordain permanently and with authority, etc. Therefore is this formula one of the oldest known in occultism, called establishing the higher self. Its mastery imparts the sense and power of firm settlement and steady foundation of the consciousness of the self, the identification of the self with the higher self. So this is a technique used to make the higher self stable and firm, which means identifying who you are, not with your ego, not with your body, but with the higher self. And by the way, this is exactly, this dog tag that I wear is called an inner star anchor. And that's exactly what that is. It's to remind oneself that one is not their ego self, but what we in the Neogenian system call the inner star. What's the inner star? It's just the higher self. It's another word for it. Higher self, inner star, zeta. These are all different words for the exact same term. It just depends on what system you're working on. For example, in Thelema, they call it HGA, or the Holy Guardian Angel. There's all these different words for it, all these different terms for it, but it's referring to the same thing, your eternal self. So this particular formula, according to the author here, is about making firm the higher self by identifying with it. The arcane teachers instructs the neophyte that he must first of all develop this awareness of the higher self by degrees until at last the higher self-consciousness may become the habitual and natural consciousness at all times and under all conditions. Once firmly fixed, the higher self-consciousness never leaves one. Once found, it becomes a tower of strength in which one may ever take refuge from the trials of the personal life, and from which one may safely defy the things of personality. So this is essentially talking about how once one reaches this higher form of consciousness, it becomes the natural consciousness that they are in at all times. Now, one quick thing that I want to mention here is that there's in the Neogenian system, we have what's called hyper-awareness, and in hyper-awareness, you have the triadic consciousness, triadic perspectives, which is avatar, zeta, and absolute. And just one thing that I want to make clear here is they're talking about being in this state of consciousness all the time. It can be helpful, actually, though, to switch between different modes of consciousness. There's the avataric mode of consciousness, which is what people typically have. We talked about that. That's like the ego stage of consciousness, where it's just you in this particular life who has a particular job in this particular body. And then the zetic mode is you're as an eternal mind, eternal self that existed across all lives and realities, etc. And then The absolute perspective, that's something we're not even talking about today. That's a cosmic perspective, understanding yourself and all of us together is all reality. We don't even need to get into that today. But just one thing I want to point out here is the author's talking about, oh, well, once you're in the eternal perspective, you're in that perspective all the time. I just want to point out that it can actually be helpful to have the ability to switch. That's why in the Neogenian system and hyper-awareness, we talk about being able to switch between these perspectives, avatar, Zedic, and absolute, or, you know, the egoic self and the eternal self, and then the cosmic self. So why is this helpful? Why would one want to switch? Well, it's very helpful to understand oneself as an eternal mind. And like he says, it helps people, it gives people strength to take refuge from the trials of personal life. And is that true? Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Because it means, you know, when you understand that you're an eternal being, things that seem really difficult before don't have the same weight. It can still be hard, but when you understand, oh, wow, I have existed eternally. This is just one little tiny thing that's happening in a succession of many different events, and I am an eternal being and ultimately am ground of all reality. So it makes things seem less significant. It can be helpful that way. That's what he's talking about. However, there can be times when you don't want to be in the eternal perspective. This can be times when you're just in the moment enjoying things, or even things that can be difficult. Like, for example, let's say that because of capitalism, you have to work a shitty 9-to-5 job where let's say you're flipping hamburgers or something. Well, it can be really hard to have, it can be kind of depressing to have that perspective of I am an infinitely eternal divine being and I have to flip hamburgers. So it can be useful from time to time to be able to switch to the avatar mode, to kind of switch so that you don't have that sort of like weight of eternity on your shoulders all the time. Or so there's just certain times when maybe you don't want to be in that mode. Maybe it would be more helpful to have a more closed experience, more of a focused experience. But that's not all. It's about finding what works for you and having the capacity to switch between these different modes. Or, you know, it could be perhaps like you're out with friends maybe, and let's say these friends of yours don't relate or don't understand about these higher things that you want to talk about relating to your eternal self. And so it can be very frustrating and depressing and lonely. So maybe in times like that, you want to sort of, you know, temporarily turn that off and just be a human for a minute. Now, it sucks that we live in a world where we have to do things like that. Well, we don't have to, but it sucks in a world where we have to live a 9-to-5 job, or where people don't really get us or understand us. But I just want to point that out, that it can sometimes be helpful to have the option to switch between these different modes for different aspects of life. So 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 now the author is going to describe how to actually do this here. So the first step of the formula, and what he means by formula is the process. So the book is called The Arcane Formulas, or Mental Alchemy, which is basically like the secret process of mental alchemy, which is like the secret process of perfecting the soul or perfecting the self. That's essentially what it means here. So the first step of the formula is that of acquiring a clear, distinct, positive, and absolute realization that the higher self is not the body or physical organism, but is superior to and master of them. Even those students who have entered the plane of mental consciousness require additional drilling in order to escape completely and fully the bonds of the physical body. The following exercise is recommended for this. And then the exercise starts. But once again, what is this doing? It's about making firm within the mind that the higher self, what you truly are, is not the body or anything to do with the physical organism, but the higher self is superior to and master of that. And it's about really reinforcing that. I think for some of us, that may be obvious, but for a lot of us, that's not the case. For a lot of us just starting our journey, people become, they've associated with their body for so long that they really need a wake-up call and methods to help them understand that they are not their body, that they are something more than their body. And so we're going to talk about these exercises. By the way, in the Neogenian system, these exercises would fall under phenomenological experience, which is about having a firsthand experience of what you are. So we're gonna talk about this right now, but I want you to notice the difference between like an exercise and knowing something intellectually. Like I can tell you, you're not your body. You are the higher self. You are a soul. You are an eternal being. I can tell you that, and you might come to the conclusion that that's true and agree with it. But knowing it is different than experiencing it. And we need both. We need to know it, but we also need to feel it as well to truly reach a multifaceted, holistic consciousness, a very well-developed consciousness. We need to have all these different aspects. All right. So we want to be able to know it and feel it at the same time. This is where exercises like this come into play, where feeling it is brought in. So let the neophyte, and a neophyte is just someone who's new, a beginner, basically. Let the neophyte place himself or herself or themselves in a quiet place away from the disturbances and distracting influences from the outside world. Let them assume a position of rest, relaxing the tension from muscles and nerves. So now we're going to start the exercise, and you can play this multiple times if you want. Just another note, they just say him over and over and over again. I'm going to replace him with them so that it's totally inclusive. Okay. So this is how you do it. Let them fix their attention upon their physical body. First, the body as a whole, then beginning at the feet. Let them move the attention upward until the whole body has been included in attention, step by step, until the brain is reached. During this process, the neophyte will become aware by degrees that they are a something inside of the body, viewing and considering the latter in all of its detail, instead of being identical with the body. Basically, you're going to reach a realization that you aren't the body, but that you're something else that's viewing and considering it. There will be a dawning realization that the body is but the physical envelope or sheath in which the higher self dwells, or a garment which the ego has assumed for the convenience of physical life. This realization will not come all at once, but will gradually dawn upon and in the consciousness, increasing by practice. When the degree of proficiency and realization of this stage has been acquired, then may the neophyte proceed to the next stage as follows. So essentially what they're saying is you should do this again and again until you begin to have the dawning realization. They're saying it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take time, that you are not your body, but you are something else that is considering the body, where the body is just a garment that the higher self wears. Now, something very quick I want to point out here, just a little detail, is they describe it as being inside of the body, but I want to make it clear that your eternal self, the true you, it's not in your body. Your soul isn't inside of your body. Your soul, your mind, you as a zeta, exist in the immaterial domain of mind, the frequency domain, at all times. At all times. Rather, you interface or connect with, in an informational way, with the avatar that gives you the experience of being in the body. You're not actually in the body, but it feels like you're in the body. So what does that mean? A real good way to understand this is like a virtual reality headset. So imagine that you're at home in your living room and you put on a virtual reality headset. You put on that virtual reality headset and suddenly you're in some fantasy world in the body of a sorcerer. Now, are you literally in the body of the sorcerer? No, you're at home on the couch where you always were. But because the information is being processed in a certain way, it feels as though you're in that world and in that character. So I just want to point that out. You as a soul are not in the body. You are interfacing with the body that is feeding your mind space-time information such that it's like a virtual reality where you're experiencing as though you're in it. Okay, so let's continue. And this may also be something else that you realize through these practices, that you are just completely beyond the physical. So let's continue here. So this is where one continues. Let the neophyte now concentrate their attention upon the feet until they are able to regard them as but tools or instruments whereby the higher self may walk in physical form. Then let them, using their imagination, realize that even if their feet were not there, attached to the body, the higher self would still be fully existent and in being. That although deprived of useful tools, the higher self would still be the higher self, unimpaired and undisturbed in its real being. Basically, if you didn't have feet, if you didn't have that aspect of your body, that would have no effect on you as the higher self. It has no bearing on you as a higher self. Just like if you're in a car and your car didn't have any tires, it wouldn't affect you, the passenger. Now, it would affect how you can maneuver the car, but it doesn't affect your being. Then bring the entire lower limbs into attention, and after fixing them firmly in consciousness, let the neophyte realize that these limbs are but instruments for physical progress, useful and important, but not indispensable to the being and reality of the higher self. Let him see that if these limbs were not there, that the higher self would still be complete and fully existent. Same idea. You see how it's slowly having you deconstruct the body bit by bit to disassociate the idea and reinforce the idea that the higher self is something other than the body, that the body is just a vehicle. Then let the neophyte bring into attention the pelvic organs, the reproductive organism, and after realizing their uses and purposes important to physical life, let them realize that the integrity and being of the higher self is no way dependent upon them. Let him in imagination separate themselves from them in consciousness, and thus realize that even if that part of the body were removed and missing, nevertheless the higher self would be fully existent in its entirety of being. So now we're just talking about the reproductive organs. And I think this is a really good point and a really interesting point because, you know, you're just in this exercise, you're deconstructing the body bit by bit. And here specifically, we're getting to the reproductive organs, which is another part of the body. But I think it's an important part because so many people get so hung up on definitions and identity simply based on a body part between their legs, which is really silly. And so it's about realizing you are beyond this. You are more than this. You are more than your feet. You are more than your legs. You are more than your genitals. You are a higher self, an eternal being. And even without these things, you would still exist in your entirety as the higher self. It says the higher self, even if they were all missing, the higher self would be fully existing fully in the entirety of its being. Doesn't matter. Just like you in a car, no matter how many pieces of the car you deconstruct, it's not going to affect you. Then let the neophyte, in a similar matter, consider the abdominal organs, the stomach, the liver, etc. And while realizing their value and utility in physical life, let them also realize that they too are physical instruments of the higher self for certain purposes, and that the higher self would dwell unimpaired in being, existence, and reality were they absent. Then let the neophyte likewise consider the chest organs, the lungs, etc., and while respecting and realizing their usefulness and wonderful adaptability to purpose, also realize that the ego would be fully existent and real, even if these organs or parts of the body were absent. Then let the neophyte pass on to the consideration of the head, with its various organs of sense, eyes, brain centers, the machinery of thought, and realize that although it would be impossible to live as a physical being in the body without these organs, still, if they were absent, the higher self would still be the higher self, complete, existent in reality, with integrity, unimpaired. So even if you have completely and totally deconstructed all the way to your head, all the way to your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your nose, your brain, even with all that deconstructed, you would still exist in your entirety as your eternal self, your true self. Then let the neophyte again consider the whole body as one organism, the wonderful instrument of the higher self, adapted for physical life. But let him fully realize that this wonderful machinery is but a created machine in and through which the higher self manifests physical life and activity. And that the and that the higher self is above, independent, and apart from the physical body in the true sense, for it may dwell apart from and out of the body. So once again, this is about a complete understanding that you, as the higher self, are completely divorced and disconnected from the body. Now you are connected to it, but it doesn't affect you in that it doesn't define you. It's a vehicle in that a car doesn't define you. A car allows you to get around. A physical body, or what we call an avatar, allows you to navigate the localized realm of the holos. It allows us to interact here in this particular plane of existence. Now, what's different here, and what's really important to understand here, is that these are exercises. This is an exercise to actually do. It's not just about like listening to it and hearing it, because yeah, like obviously we talk about this a lot, but it's about actually taking the time to do this mental exercise, to have an experience, to have that awakening to what you are. It's one thing to know it, it's another to feel it. After performing these mental exercises, throw the mind into and over the entire body and into and through all its parts. The purpose of this concluding process is to re-energize the physical organism, which has, in a measure, become devitalized during the analytical process. You will find that you will be able to recharge the body with vitality and make it stronger and more virile than it was before the exercise. After you once realized that it is but an instrument or machine which is used by and directed by the higher self. This is essentially saying that what you want to do to conclude this is throw your mind, throw your consciousness into and over the entire body and through all its parts, kind of feeling like an energy going through it, to reestablish that connection, because you just did a bunch of disconnecting. So you want to reestablish that connection. But the important thing is that you're establishing this reconnection, but with the profound realization that the body is an instrument. And because you have the realization that the body is the instrument, then you have that much more power over the body. You have that much more power over it when you realize that it is an instrument, that it is a vehicle. The realization of the mastery of the body by the higher self brings with it a new power of energizing and vitalizing the body or any part thereof. Throwing the attention to parts of the body after this realization has been gained tends to direct to the particular parts an increasing supply of vital energy. After mastering the above exercises to a satisfactory degree, let the neophyte pass on to the following exercise. So there's another exercise once one has mastered that, essentially. Once one has mastered the disassociation of the body with the mind, so that you understand that the mind, the eternal self, is not who you truly are. Now, this doesn't mean that you want to walk around all day in a disassociative state. That's not what that means. It's about just coming to a realization that your body isn't what you are. And this process, this technique can help that for those who are struggling with this idea or haven't truly felt it. So once one has done that, here is the exercise that one moves on to. Let the neophyte, in imagination, leave the physical body and gaze upon the latter. So in your imagination, you're going to imagine yourself leaving the physical body and looking down on it. Now, again, I want to emphasize that you aren't literally inside of your body, but you can still project your consciousness. You can close your eyes and you can imagine yourself leaving your body and looking down on it. A little mental practice will enable one to do this in imagination, thus bringing fully to the mind the realization that it is possible for the higher self to leave the body and dwell apart from it. When the mind has once grasped this possibility, the body will ever after be recognized as merely a physical machine, sheath, or covering of the higher self. and one will never again commit the folly of identifying the I with the physical body. The I is not your physical body. The I is the true I, the great I am, the higher self, the inner star, the Zeta. To those who may object that this is merely an exercise of the imagination proving nothing, for the reason that one may imagine anything, we suggest the trial of the old occult test whereby the neophyte was instructed to try to imagine himself as dead. A trial will show that this is impossible. All that can be imagined in this direction is that the physical body is dead, while the soul either 1 stands apart fully alive, viewing the body, or else 2 inhabits the dead body, in either case, being the physical body alone, which is dead, the higher self being always alive. So basically what he's saying here is that you can't imagine yourself as being dead. And when I say you can't imagine yourself as being dead, I don't mean the physical body. What he means is the soul. You can't imagine your eternal self not existing. And that's exactly right. He's saying that all you can do is imagine the body being dead, or from view, you can imagine viewing your body being dead, or you can imagine your body being dead, but you are located in the body. You aren't literally are, but your consciousness. But he's saying that you can't imagine your eternal self as being dead. And this is exactly right, because your true self, your eternal self, is what you are as a subjective center, and subjectivity cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. So you as a subjectivity can never not exist. You must always exist. You have to exist. Your existence is mandatory, and it's impossible to imagine not existing. So if you close your eyes right now and try to imagine not existing, it's not possible, because what is doing the imagining has to exist in order to imagine anything. You can imagine darkness for a very long time, but darkness for a very long time is not existing. Non-existence is a complete and total absence of all experience of any kind forever. And that's something that you cannot imagine. And it is an impossible state. You can't not exist. You have to exist. Your existence is mandatory. I explain this in detail in my book, in Meta-Rationalism, by the way, why it is you have to exist, why it is that your existence is logically necessary. So anyway, but let's continue here. Then let the neophyte imagine themselves as leaving behind their physical body until, as Holmes says, quote, "Thou at length are free, leaving thine outgrown shell by life's unresting sea," end quote. Let them then imagine themselves as occupying other and different bodies, one at a time, in different phases of life and condition, in different ages, etc. And so this is a very interesting exercise as well, because now that you have made the realization that you're more than the body, now it's about realizing, putting yourself in many different bodies and realizing that this doesn't change who you are. Now, it changes who you are in that we're all going through a process of mental evolution, but I mean in a fundamental way. In a fundamental way, you are always a mind. You are always an eternal self, no matter what body you're inhabiting, no matter what car you are driving. So imagine yourself in different bodies, one at a time, in different phases of life, young and old, different conditions, different times in history. This will bring about a realization that the higher self is something higher and independent of the particular physical shell or machine that it is now using, and which it may have at one time considered identical with itself. Then will the particular body occupied seem in reality my body instead of I or me. Yeah, this is your body. It's not you, just like that's your car. It's not you. The body is not the I. The body is your body. The soul, the Zeta, the higher self, the inner star. That is the I. That is what you are. The true I. Not the egoic I, but the true self, the higher self. The neophyte is cautioned against learning to despise their body when they realize that it is not the self. And I think that's a really good important point. Some people may do that, and there are some systems that look down on the body, or that even look at the body as like a prison to be escaped. You see that in Gnosticism, you see that in Buddhism, you see that in Hinduism, where the body is looked at as this shell, this prison that needs to be escaped. Where, like in the Neogenian system, that's not the case. You have a car. Is your car something that needs to be escaped? No, because your car is useful and it serves a purpose. It's to get you around, get you to go places. Your avatar serves a purpose. You didn't just get stuck in here and you're like, ah, shit, I got stuck in this. Now I got to get out of this thing. No, it serves a purpose. You have interfaced with this avatar as a Zeta for a purpose. That is to grow, learn, and explore, because you are a system of transforming mental patterns, frequency functions. And as you explore the space-time realm and gather information and data, sort of analogous to training data of a learning network, you're learning, you're growing, and you're understanding. So this vehicle has a very deep and profound use. It's not something that we're trying to escape. It's rather more like a chrysalis. It's a process. It's a vehicle. So don't despise your body. The body is to be respected and well cared for. Very important point. Critical point. For it is a necessary instrument for expression at this period of the evolution of the higher self. So important. It is a necessary instrument for the expression of the evolution of the higher self. It allows the higher self to express itself and evolve. This is why the avatar is, we sometimes refer as the gateway for the inner star. The avatar, and even ego consciousness, the ego consciousness is the servant of the higher self. All of this is in service to the higher self. The ego consciousness, your body, personas, all of these aspects of you are in service to the higher self, meaning they are allowing the higher self to step through the gateway and express itself in this world. Your body, your actions, your avatar, your ego consciousness is the way in which your higher self is expressing itself in this particular lifetime. And that's why it's important to expand your consciousness so that you can augment that expression. But that's what this is. Our bodies are all gateways for our higher self. It's the portal that allows our higher self to manifest in this domain. Do not make the mistake of so many who have grasped only half-truths and who despise their bodies. See, this is why I like William Walker Atkinson a lot. I don't agree with everything that he says. And I think he sometimes uses words that aren't the best chosen words, but whatever. A lot of his ideas are really on the mark and are so contrary to what you're going to see in a lot of like new age spiritual beliefs today, or like even Eastern, like Buddhism or Hinduism or whatnot, or even some mystical traditions. He really, you can tell that this individual was a highly conscious individual who really understood existence to a very high degree and was trying to get this information across. I like his work quite a lot. So don't make the mistake of so many who've only understood half-truths and who despise the body. This is a great mistake, and we would warn all neophytes against it. The physical body is the bridge which is carrying you over a wild stream. Do not undervalue it. Treat it well, with loving regard and care. The physical body is the temple of the spirit. Make it a worthy one. Keep it clean and in good condition. Let it be a worthy dwelling place of the Most High. And see, this is what this really means. I'm sure you probably heard like, oh, the body is the church, or the temple of God, or the church, or where the Holy Spirit dwells in the church of your body, or whatever. That's what this is, what it really means. Christianity has completely misinterpreted that idea of your body being the dwelling place of God. And, they're like, oh, well, you can't get tattoos because you're ruining the temple of God. That's so stupid. No, it's about your body is a temple of the spirit for the purpose of you as a spirit to express yourself. And if part of that expression includes tattoos, that's awesome. Whatever you so choose, as long as you're not, going really harming yourself or something, is conducive to expression and is part of an evolving mind expressing itself here in the holos. So it says the practice of the exercises indicated by the formulas just described, if carefully and faithfully practiced, will give to the neophyte a new sense of existence. They will realize by actual mental experience that they, the higher self, is an entity having its existence on a plane higher than that of the physical body and superior to the latter. They will also experience a realization of the power of mastery over the physical body, which they may employ in the direction of mentally treating the latter for physical wrong functioning, weakness, or irregularities. With a little practice, he will be able to make their physical body a most responsive instrument of their mind, and will and may build upon and strengthen it as they may desire. This power, once acquired, will also enable them to treat the physical bodies of others to excellent advantage. When the neophyte actually realizes that he is independent and superior to the physical body, they will realize that they have the power to command the physical functions and those of others who have not attained this realization. Let's, one thing that I want to point out here is that we have to be very careful with something like this. Understanding this allows us, yes, to have mastery over the physical body. Does this mean that we're going to be able to, just cure all our sicknesses just by thinking about it? Of course not. That's not what it means. And when he says like, you'll have power over other physical bodies. Are you going to be able to like mentally heal people or curse people or whatever? No, that's not what that means. And here's something we have to be a little careful with, because like I said, I like William Atkinson's work a lot, but he did have, so one of the techniques often used that I don't agree with, one of the techniques often used by people who are involved in either secret societies or cult traditions or engaged in trying to communicate higher consciousness is to package the ideas in a way that makes them sound alluring. And I've talked about this before. This is why I say be really careful if anyone's like, I got this message from the secret chiefs, or I channeled it from Archangel Michael, or blah, 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 blah. Because this is a really common tactic used, like I said, in occult traditions and secret teachings to give their message authority. Like we see this in Mormonism, where Joseph Smith, got his message from the golden plates he found written in Egyptian, where the angel Moroni told him to find the golden plates. But of course, he gave the golden plates back or whatever, and you can't see them and can't find them. Because why? Well, because it gives authority. If it sounds a lot better than just Joseph Smith going like, hey guys, I got this idea. Or, William being like, hey, I got these ideas, where he mostly did. But you can see like he wrote under a lot of pseudonyms, like he wrote the Kabbalion under the pseudonym of the Three Initiates. He wrote the Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians under the pseudonym of Magus Incognito. And so there is this idea of packaging things into like an alluring way. And one method I mentioned is by claiming that you're getting a message from some higher being or these secret beings or something. Another one is the whole idea of secrets, right? Like, you're going to learn these super special secrets if you be a part of our society. And as you go up the degrees, you're going to have all these great revelations given to you. That's another way to add allure and mystique to it so that people are like, I want to learn this. And in my opinion, saying something like this is an example of that. Like, you're going to have mastery over your own body and someone else's body, because it's almost like, the average person reading this might think, wow, I'm going to be able to heal myself and heal other people. Or maybe I'll be able to have like psychic telekinesis powers or something. Maybe William actually believed that, but based on studying his material and what I know about this stuff, I don't think that he did. I think that he just put it in a way that sounds more alluring, because the idea is basically like, because Aleister Crowley talked about this before as well. Aleister Crowley talked about how any act is a magical act. So for example, if he gave the example in his book, Magic Without Tears. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it exactly. But he's basically saying like, hey, if I write a book and publish my book, that is an act of magic. How is it an act of magic? Well, he says the pen is my magical weapon. In the book, I write magical incantations and spells, which is just his philosophy. I invoke helping spirits, which he said is just like the publishers and the editors, the publishers, to disseminate his message into the consciousness of the masses, to place his spells in the consciousness of the masses, which is just spreading his books to the public. So you can see how someone like Crowley can say like, oh, I am creating these magical spells and calling on spirits to disseminate my spells to the masses to transform consciousness, right? And he'd be like, oh, wow, ooh, super spooky. What are you doing? When it's like, well, he's just writing a book, giving it to a publisher and having the message spread that way, which it's very powerful to have this higher understanding of, because it's true, these are magical acts. And having that perspective is very powerful, because having that perspective changes the way you think about your life. Things become much more meaningful because you realize, hey, I'm not just an average person writing a book or making a song or whatever. I am a master of reality, altering the frequencies of existence. And when you realize, I'm an eternal being that's mastering reality and shaping the cosmos by altering the frequencies of existence. And you realize, now that might just be like, oh, you're writing a song. But when that song is imbued with meaning and a purpose, that's what you're doing. And having that understanding is very powerful and very strong. And I'm completely on board with that. But what I don't like is when it's done in a way where it's like intentionally misleading, where, like, for example, if it's like, oh, hey, come join this group because you're going to learn how to, project your frequencies into, or what, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because people are going to think it's something that it's not. Like with this, people might, and the goal here, basically what they're trying to do is get people interested so that once they do start learning what it actually is, they'll come to the realization of what it truly is and then be like, oh, I understand what it is now. I thought it was this thing, but it isn't. It's actually this other thing. And it's sort of a way to get people interested, because it's hard to explain what these ideas are. So it's a way to get people interested, like, oh, hey, you're going to learn how to master your body and master other people's bodies, which is just about having a higher state of consciousness where you are able to, from that state of consciousness, realize that your body is just an instrument, and other people's bodies, that's just like learning how to communicate with people in certain ways so that they will come to certain realizations themselves or whatever. But when you frame it this way, I personally don't like this, because I think that it attracts all this secret society stuff, all this occult stuff, all this. And there are a lot of great occult systems. I'm not saying all occult systems are like this, but the ones that intentionally are misleading, I think attracts the wrong kind of people, because then you get people who aren't really interested in higher knowledge and higher understanding. What do they want? Secrets and power, secrets and power, secrets and power, secrets and power. And someone who's really obsessed with secrets and power is not necessarily the best person you want to be having learn how to, transform reality, because then you set up all these manipulative systems. So basically my perspective on all this is teach it like anything else would be taught in school. Be very upfront with what it is, what you're learning, and what you're understanding. That's what the Neogenian system is all about. It's about bringing this information that's all obscured with, occult lingo or scattered across, putting it in a place where it's all collected and in a rational and logical form, where it's very clear what you're getting, where you can learn it like you would learn a subject in school, like science or philosophy. You learn higher consciousness and you're understanding exactly what it is that you're getting into. Now, there's certain things you can't understand until you get to that level, just like you can't understand, for example, if you want to learn quantum mechanics, you can't just jump it. You have to learn physics and science and math before you can jump into quantum mechanics. But you have a general idea of what quantum mechanics is. You're not under this impression of, oh, wow, it's this super secret thing, and maybe when I understand it, I'll be able to cast spells on people or something. Like, no one thinks that. Whereas when it comes to these sorts of systems, people often do have that misconception. And I just don't really like it. Like, I'm an ex-Christian. I grew up in a very strict Christian household, and I don't like when things are deceitful or misleading. So I think we should be as clear and lucid as possible, with the understanding that these are ideas that are difficult to communicate, and I understand that. But anyway, long story short, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. I just want to make it clear what we're really doing here. And when we hear things like this, I like William Walker Atkinson's work a lot. And it's possible that he actually believed this himself, but I just want to make it clear, you're not going to be able to like levitate or fly or something. This is about having a profound understanding of what you truly are, what you really are, having a lucid understanding of existence so that you can better control your life. And that's not just a little thing. The transformation of consciousness will allow you to transform your life. Because think about when you're asleep and dreaming. When you're asleep and dreaming, you are caught up in the dream narrative. When you become lucid, let's say you become lucid in the dream, but you can't, let's say that you're still, some people, when they become lucid in the dream, they can change the dream just by thinking about it. Pretend that doesn't happen. You're still in the dream. This dream is still playing out how it is, but you're now aware that it is a dream. Well, your consciousness has been raised. You realize that it is a dream. And even though you can't magically change stuff, what you do have is the consciousness to be able to say, you know what, this is a dream. And now that I know this is a dream, I'm really not so interested in maybe you were trying to defeat a dragon and get some treasure. And that's what you were super obsessed with in the dream. But then you become lucid and you realize, that's really not that interesting. I want to go over here and talk to these dream characters and try and figure this out or explore this part of my psyche in the dream or whatever. You see, what was so important to you before doesn't really matter anymore. So likewise, when you raise your consciousness in this reality, you start to realize that certain things that you might have been obsessed with or that the world is obsessed with doesn't really matter, and that there are great secrets in this world to uncover. When I say secrets, I'm not doing the secret society thing. I mean the truth about yourself and reality and understanding more and more what you are, where you are, and why you are here. Look at the difference between, say, an instinctual animal and a human being. A human being, an instinctual animal is instinctual and so does not have self-awareness. A human being is self-aware. They exist in the same world, but a human being has a vast plethora of many more abilities than the animal does. It can create social structures and governments and societies and cultures and all this. Well, when one raises their consciousness to all awareness and hyper awareness, same sort of thing. It's like stepping into a completely new reality. So here is my question to you. We've been going on at this for a little while. This book, there's a lot, like the next part, there are more exercises. There are many more exercises and many more lessons in this book, the arcane formulas or mental alchemy. So I want to know, is this something you like? Do you want to continue this? Make sure you tell me in the comments, because if you like it, we'll keep going. There are many more exercises. This is just the beginning. Many more lessons here in this particular book. So tell me what you think in the comments. And on that note, my friends, check out my videos. I have a lot of them. And if you enjoy my work, consider becoming a member right here on YouTube or on Patreon. Hit the join button below here and you can see all the different perks that you get. There's a lot of great ones. You can get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every single week, access to our Discord server and the Nexus Academy, where we have live Neogenian classes and study groups. It's great. And it's the best way to support my channel. You get a lot of great stuff from that. Check out my new books, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, and Meta-Rationalism, The New Science of Mind. The link is in the description of this video. Check them out. Highly important stuff. And I'm going to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nusalina, Christopher Smith, Eon, and Vanessa. Thank you very much.